Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrain. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking your full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest.
Sales is changing fast right now. We know it. AI is everywhere. Companies are trying to do more with less. Customers have more information at their fingertips. And it raises an important question. What happens to key account management? So in this episode of the Art and Science of Complex Sales, I sit down with Warwick Brown. Warwick is founder of the KAM Club, and he's one of the leading voices in the world on key account management. He spent his career both managing and coaching strategic account teams across the globe. So we're talking about where key account management's headed, how AI is changing expectations, why the best account managers will actually need to go deeper in their customer relationships, and how they can best manage portfolios. So if you manage strategic accounts or want to, or run a team that does, this conversation has insights you won't want to miss. Let's get started with Warwick Brown. Warwick, it's great to see you, man. How you doing?
I am doing really well, Paul, and likewise, glad to be back talking all things account management.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. It's been a couple of years, I think, since you've been on the pod.
Yeah, been a while, long time coming.
But there's been some big changes in key account management over the past couple of years.
Lots of changes. I mean, obviously the last couple of years, global events, national events, business impact, and a lot of that driven by AI is really sort of impacting how people approach managing their customer relationships. So, I think it's a timely topic for us to chat about where we think those types of relationships are going to lead and how key account managers are going to thrive and if they're even going to survive.
Yeah, and that's what I reached out. It was really around that topic of what's next. What does the next 5 years look like? Right? We don't have to limit to that, but in terms of key account management, where it's going, and you have such a breadth and depth of knowledge on the topic, and you're working with people in the KAM Club every day. Why don't we just set the stage though for the listeners, if you don't mind, just giving them a little bit of your background. Not everybody listened to the first episode with you. A little bit of your background and understanding where you sit today in the world of account management.
Sure. Well, pleasure to get acquainted with anybody I haven't met before. My name's Warwick Brown. I'm the KAM coach, founder of the KAM Club. My background is in key account management, either leading to or being in the field, in the trenches, and then leading teams across Europe, UK, and Australia. Worked for companies like Expedia and American Express in those functions. And last 5 years, I've been doing my own thing, doing training, consulting, coaching in the space of key account management. So, live and breathe it every single day, and I've seen it all, and then some. So, bringing that field-based perspective to now these sort of more consulting and coaching roles has been really interesting to be able to share what I've learned and also learn, stay current, right? Just keep your finger on the pulse. You always have to keep adapting, and that's what I do every day.
Well, let's talk about that adapting. Let's talk about what's going on now and what you're seeing in key account management and where you think we're headed.
Well, I think to put everybody's mind at rest, it's not going anywhere. I think it will certainly change in terms of how you deliver the role and what's expected of you. But in terms of the function itself, it continues to still live inside LinkedIn's most in-demand jobs. Whenever they do their quarterly assessment, account management is almost always in the top 10 or a variation of that, account executive or customer success manager. So those touch points, those interfaces between sort of the customer and the business still need to be there at a strategic level, which is what account management does. So that's number one. Number two is that there is amazing growth opportunities. It's been a topic of research for many years, academics as well as consulting firms, management consulting firms. in fact, I've done some prep, so let me read us some stats here. One was by Rain Group, who do a lot of account management and sales training. They researched 397 companies with formal strategic account management programs, and they found they're three times more likely to grow revenue by 20%. They're 4.5 times more likely to improve customer satisfaction, and 60% of companies believe they should be generating at least 25% plus from their strategic accounts, of revenue more. So as far as the value and the ROI of an account management program, no question, absolutely no question.
Yeah.
So I think where it's going to now shift is what's going to separate the top performers. How are they going to use the tools like AI and embed processes and systemize things in a way that's going to be scalable, but also not remove the account managers from the process, still keep that relationship as a primary driver or the foundation of it.
Yeah, it's almost like how, and I've seen some crazy stats recently on downsizing in SaaS companies and other things that are going on. But it seems like the ability to become more effective and efficient at the same time almost is what's driving a lot of the changes. I don't know if that's what you see. Is that something? I mean, it's hard to be efficient in relationships. It's not something we as humans do well. We need to spend time to do things well. But being able to get information at your fingertips more effectively, that is something that is I see as important. I don't know. Is that something that's how you're seeing?
Yeah, look, I think that's it's not so much about efficiency in the sense of doing things faster and taking on more work. I think what it is about is doing deeper, more quality work that generates higher growth and retention from your customers. So there's no excuse now not to have prepared a detailed agenda. You can whip one of those up in 5 minutes, less with AI. There's no excuse not to have done your proper lead qualification. There's no excuse not to have adapted your messaging to appeal to your individual stakeholders, because you can take one piece of one product brief and ask a tool like ChatGPT to give you 10 different messages for 10 different audiences and solve 10 different problems with the same thing. So I think that's where the expectation will be raised. And that's where the top performers are going to thrive, where they're seeing these tools as not a quick way to do the same and, spend less time doing it, but devote more time to outputting much more in-depth quality work that's going to drive better results. It's not a time saver for me. When I'm in ChatGPT or Copilot, I spend much longer on things than I used to, because it opens up that Pandora's box. It gets me thinking. It gets me to the end result that I could probably get to on my own if I spent 3 days, but now I can get there in 10 minutes. And then I can look at things more deeply than I ever have been able to before.
Yeah, I notice this a lot with some of the stuff we're doing in our own platform in Membrain, and we're driving AI throughout the platform, but it's one of those things. So the CRM used to be this thing of, you'd have a bunch of data, right? But being able to query that data and understanding it from different perspectives and be able to actually query it from, okay, look at, put yourself, Membrain AI, put yourself in a position of a CEO of this company based on what you know of everything. And out here, tell me, what are the different areas you see about their usage and those that we can be helpful, and using it as that collaborator has been really helpful for the team. But you're right. It's not one of those things that it's not solving everything and expecting people to do things like 7 times faster, at least in this part of it. It's helping them figure out how to deepen the relationship. So do you see more human to human contact and more like the expectation of being able to go deeper with people as a part of a key account management function in the future?
I think I would like to see, this is the challenge, right? There's a lot of hesitance over, AI and data sharing and privacy and IP and all that kind of stuff. So you obviously have to have some guardrails up, but I do this I do training all the time. My in-person training hasn't in fact has sped up in recent years compared to where it was before AI. And there is always I always have an AI component in the training, and it always blows people's minds. And the end result of the things they produce is unbelievable. The things that they create, their account plans, their value messaging, their contact plans, their cold outreach campaigns, all that kind of stuff. They just don't have, they normally wouldn't even have time to do that in a day-to-day. They're so busy. Now they can at least bring some of that quality that they're capable of just now, but with the time pressure and the portfolio pressure. So I guess, I don't know if I answered the question, but the long answer, which I've just given you, is the trend is, the expectation from the customer is, why are you coming here half prepared? Why don't you know this stuff? You could have spent 3 minutes in the lobby finding out this stuff. Why are you asking me? You're wasting my time. Come to me with value. Come to me with impact. Come to me with what you think I should do next to get better results by working with you. And I think we have to rise to the occasion.
That's awesome. So what else are you seeing in the future? So a more prepared, a more being able to go deeper, faster, but still tying at the hip in terms of the relationship. But I think, what else are you seeing?
I mean, customer retention is going to be key. I think more and more the focus is on how do we drive customer retention, thinking more about, the high cost of acquisition, 5 to 7 times more expensive, Forrester says, in terms of, having a salesperson on the road trying to qualify and close deals and implement them and then try to keep them. So, repeat customers, they tend to spend more on average. It's cheaper to keep them. It's easier to manage them. So I think what will be driving retention in 2026 and on is going to look a little bit different. We can't just be waiting for the contract to renew and then having those conversations. Got to do a lot more proactive outreach. Got to do maybe even rethink some of our pricing strategies. So not necessarily account management, but think about, all right, what is pricing fit for purpose now? Based on fastest time to result, and how do we get our onboarding more effective and reduce the gap between what was sold and what's possible, because often there is a gap, and how do you build engagement that's custom and personalized at scale, but from an account management perspective, right? Not because they still don't have these tools. Like a marketing person might have the tools to do email campaigns, but a salesperson often doesn't, or a key account manager. They're still using their own inbox. They're not using tools for broad communication. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how organizations respond to customer retention pressure and how they pivot their whole organization structure, policies, procedures, SOPs, all that kind of stuff to support that.
Yeah, one of the things you said there is very interesting. Like, I've always seen key account management as a portfolio that you need to continually, you need to drive value into that portfolio to get value out of that portfolio, right? So it's kind of this multiplication of value. And some of the great things that I've seen our team members do, and is how do you take that exact question? How do you drive that more effectively at scale? And I think one of the is, and so, how do your group of customers, how do you run things like quick coffee chats for them and exactly. Ensuring that they're connecting and understanding and learning all the cool things that can be done on a day-to-day at the user level, but then also how do you then provide strategic guidance? Have you seen people diving in on that, leveraging like AI to come up with those campaigns and ideas? Because it's interesting. Subsets of portfolios that they have for key account management are different than the broad, complete customer base of the company often. And so that key account manager knows that value for their customers better than anyone, or they should. But have you seen them like analyzing their portfolios and using it for that?
No, I think it's coming, and it's one thing that I preach and I teach is, how do you start to think a little bit more like a salesperson in terms of like outreach, proactive contact planning, territory planning, making sure that you reach out to your customers regularly. And at least if you're ignoring them on purpose, not because you're overwhelmed or you're just hoping no news is good news, that you're actually, what is going on. And I think nobody really looks at like the time to motion or looks at the actual, how long it takes to do certain things. So a key account manager, you might have 10 accounts. Let's say, if you've got big accounts like $5-10 million accounts, that doesn't mean 10 people you're contacting. Each of those accounts has probably got 5 to 10 important stakeholders that you need to be, senior decision makers, executives, problem owners. Then you've got end users and influencers in between. So that's still going to be a couple of hundred people, at least 100 or more that you have to be in contact with very regularly. But there's no tools to do that. Salespeople get the automation tools and the sequencing tools and things like that. But who helps a poor account manager? Nobody. You just have to go into your inbox and hope to remember. You can't enroll people in campaigns or build automations yourself. Most account managers are not given those tools. So I think you can do a lot with AI to help you kind of figure those things out. But I would love to see more training, more support, more investment in helping account managers manage their portfolio in that way.
I'm not going to go into a Membrain pitch now, but everybody go to membrain.com and check out some of the tools we have there. Cause I think that's a massive thing. Cause historically, you've had to bring in marketing and do, targeted account-based marketing and those type of things. But I think that gap is, I know in our own organization, that gap is shrinking, and you don't need to do that. Like the assets that marketing have should be at your fingertips, but you then should be able to craft and create and understand, for that value within your portfolio, the core things that are going to operate. So I had one account manager do like just great things, like, and now they have the tools like a Loom video, like this. Hey, I've seen most of your struggle with this and this and this, and then just be able to get that out there at the user level. And she has this great success being able to do that across the portfolio that she owned, instead of, and it met the requirement of connecting and being proactive. So you're seeing more of that in the future, and I 100%. I am too.
Again, we're at this pivot point, right, where those that don't embrace these ideas and get with the program are going to be left behind, because those tools are now available. Tools like Membrain offer that functionality. There's dedicated tools that do that. Account managers shouldn't have to be trying to tackle mail mergers in the 21st century, to try and get hi Paul, hi Warwick in their email, or have to send 100 separate emails, or just use a BCC, but then no insight into whether that campaign worked. Did the person open it? Did they click on anything? Like, you get nothing. And I should be able to do that whether I want to send it to 10 people or 100 people or 500 people. And like you say, that little video, right? If I wanted to film a video and say, hey, here's our latest releases. I know there's been a challenge for you. Here's where you go. Look. If I want to send it to 10 people, that's 10 separate emails. I should be able to send it once, and tools take care of it. So those are the sorts of things. I still know lots of account managers that don't have access to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Oh no, that's for the salespeople. And you think, this is the stuff, right? If you're putting walls up to prevent people from embracing opportunities to deliver better for your teams, then and your customers, what are you doing?
Yeah, I completely agree. And so how do you arm, like in your coaching and in the what you do with individuals, like how do you start to take people from the reactive, renewal focused, I got my 10 to 50 accounts, I'm reactive, I'm renewal focused, I'm upsell focused, or support focused. How do you start to take them and shift that mindset into how do we get proactive and view this as a portfolio, increasing value? What are some of the things that you do with people to do that?
Well, firstly, I've got a simple way of thinking about the relationship or the partnership, right? Bucket number one or phase number one is relationships, right? You have to have the right relationships in place. Without those, people are not going to feel loyalty. They're not going to feel commitment. They're not going to feel trust in order to be able to then buy other solutions or stay with you long term. So number one, you've got to find the right people, not just relationships for the sake of it. Spend the right amount of time with the right people that are going to help you get decisions made, have budget, have problems that need solving, get things done. So that's number one. Then once you have that in place, you can move on to the revenue phase. And that's where you start to think about the problems and the opportunities that my clients are facing. Where do I fit into that? How can I show them the best way to partner? Our solutions enable whatever they're trying to achieve. And that might mean just improving efficiency. It doesn't always mean selling stuff. Sometimes it just means making working together easier. But a lot of times you'll have something that can solve that problem, right? And then once you have those things in place, you've got evidence, you've got relationships, you've got track record, you're in a good place to focus on retention, which is, all right, how am I going to secure this client long term? How am I going to avoid RFPs? How am I going to make sure that our contract conversations are easy because it's a no-brainer? So if you think about your clients and think about, well, where are they in those stages? If you're in the retention stage, but you don't have any relationships or revenue track record, well, you're going to find retention hard. So that's number one. And then number two is how can I manage my week? Like start to think about optimal weeks, time blocking, thinking about, how maybe doing certain things on certain days to kind of get routines in place, stop doing other people's work, find homes for things that don't belong in your world. And then bring in AI as like you said earlier, like a partner, as a co-creator to help you look at problems from different angles, helping you produce things that are higher quality, faster, that are going to drive better results for your clients, for yourself. For example, like I also had a coaching client just the other day. They've got an internal issue, right? What we did with AI to prepare them to discuss that already solved half the problem for this issue, because it's like, here's they're able to document it clearly, share it from the other person's perspective, instead of just going, hey, this is a problem, you need to solve it, it's your job,
Yep.
Or taking on the work themselves because it was too difficult to, try and figure out how to fix it. So those are the places I would start, right? If you don't have those three buckets and you don't have your clients that are in good places in all three, you start with the basics, And the other thing,
relationships. Let me see if I can say those again. Relationships, so ensuring
relationships, revenue, retention. 3 buckets, the 3 R's.
Yeah. Okay. And then day planning and all those things. You said something there.
Day planning. And the other thing I say is you can segment your customers however you want. Like, okay, your business might say, global, platinum, bronze, silver, gold, or large key, whatever they call it. It's immaterial. You have a bunch of clients and you can say, these are the clients I hate. And that can be your own way of bucketing them. You think, I know I hate them. That means I have to work harder at reaching out because I'm always avoiding them. You might have clients you love that are easy and you think, okay, these are the clients I can't take for granted. You might have clients that are noisy and you think, all right, I've got to work on them to be able to. So it doesn't really matter. You can call them whatever you want. And I always encourage people to look through their portfolio, look at the buckets and put their clients into segments that make sense. Maybe they're clients I do not want to speak to ever again because they are loss leaders, they're expensive, and if they left tomorrow, nobody would care. And you think, great, I know that. That's the bucket I'm ignoring. Perfect. But you've made that decision. And that doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if they're platinum accounts or your company calls them. Does that make sense? That's what helped me.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I think it gives agency. I mean, it gives complete agency, and then understanding. You said something there that was really highlighted something for me, which is understanding what you should be doing and understanding what you can be giving off to others, like within the organization. And that kind of hits me. Like when key account managers tend to, and I've seen it across my career, right? You find the relationships that work, that are in your portfolio, and then you tend to go over and beyond and extend and do things. Like a support call comes in, you're like, oh, that's mine, I'm going to do it, right? That's my favorite customer, I'm going to take this. But you spend an inordinate amount of time working in that quadrant of the very liked and the ones that I'll overinvest in, right? And what you said there on the back half was, is wonderful. Customers I don't like, but the realization is you still have to drive those customers. If they're good for the company, you still have to drive those relationships and have that mechanism to kind of prod yourself forward. Does that bucketing procedure help with that? Because I think it could. I mean, because I find when you start to overinvest in the relationships that you love, it's a great thing. You build customers for life, but you also take time away from those relationships that need nurturing.
Absolutely. And it helps you. You could have multiple buckets. You could have people that are happy with email conversations. So you think, all right, I'm never going to call them. You might have people that you can just play phone tag and leave voicemails on. You think, that's a bucket. I know I can just leave voicemails for these 20 people every Tuesday, and they'll be happy with that. They'll leave me a voicemail, and we probably will never actually speak. However you want to do it. This is why I think it's a creative way to just think about being more effective with your portfolio. All right, these are the ones that have bought every single product we ever have. So I just need to, track usage. There's no growth opportunities there. What's your oyster? Pick whatever you want, but think about it in a way that's going to help you, like you said, distribute your attention, which is in limited supply, in the right way. That's going to get results for the organization. That's the goal.
Yeah.
It can't just be your faves and then the clients that are noisy, and then the rest of the tween just fall through the cracks.
I completely agree. I had one rep do it was pretty innovative. I thought it was awesome. He did a 4-box on and placed his partnerships in the 4-box between relationship and revenue possibility, right? So the ones it was a really interesting. You ended up with 4 quadrants, which was high relationship, high revenue possibility, low relationship, low, and then the other 2. It was a fascinating exercise because he really targeted where he needed to focus and invest in his portfolio in a really good way. And then he also took the second step, which I was really proud of him on, which is, what is blocking me from those relationships? So to go back to your number one, that relationships, we tend to spend the time with the people that we really like, right? And the account management, and we tend to get stuck there. Even within an organization that we know we need to go up the ladder, we know we need to go sideways, right? We just get stuck on those people. How do you help? Any new things that you're working on that help people break out of that mold instead of getting stuck on that person?
Yeah, I mean, I always, I've been there myself many times where I just love working with this person, and literally I've stopped there. I'm like, I don't need to go any further. We have a blast every time I do a business review. It's great. We do stuff, but obviously that's high risk. I'm not somebody that thinks you have to build relationships for relationships' sake. You're looking for the owner of the problems. You want to make sure that you're in front of people that have issues that you can help solve and that you can make a greater impact on. Because those are the people that will be complaining about you if you're behind the scenes. So you're always looking for, how can I help this person? So that's really my take. I'm not looking for a network of 50 people in an organization just because. I'm not looking to have a C-level conversation just because, unless it makes sense. So what you need to be thinking about is, all right, I just want to de-risk the relationship. You can't just have one person on your side. You need multiple champions. Do I have those in place? All right, if I don't, how am I going to get them? If I don't know who those people are, how am I going to find out? Do I ask for an org chart? If my how do I get them into these meetings? How do I build my agendas and my business reviews in a way that will attract those people naturally to as an audience? Invite them for 15 minutes, doesn't have to stay for 2 hours. How can I use my support tickets? That's the top tip I always say. Go through your support tickets. There will be one from somebody. There'll be people from all over the organization that's raised a support ticket. It's an easy way to reach out and say, hey, I'm Warwick, I'm your account manager. I thought I'd call as a follow-up. I know that issue was resolved back in January, but wanted to make sure it hasn't happened again. By the way, while I've got you, blah, 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 blah. Super easy, and no gatekeeper could ever complain about you doing that call, even though you secretly have a different agenda for making it.
That's a huge tip, and I'm sure that account managers all over the world use it, but the ones that don't use it. Like that's a massively helpful thing. And even to be, it's interesting too, because I have seen some organizations that separate their support tickets from their account managers. Like they're like, oh, that only goes to support. And it's just a huge error. It's just a massive error. You just have to have that view. But that gets down to that point of doing somebody else's work sometimes. Like, how do you, there is that support layer that many organizations have, and then the account manager level. How do you ensure that the account manager becomes the quarterback? Like, how, they should be the quarterback, but how do you?
They usually are. Like, if anything gets super escalated, or it always ends up in the account manager's lap. I think what you want to avoid is being the first point of contact, right? You don't want to be the shortcut to getting a resolution. You want to let it run its natural course, even if it's unacceptably late. You can't be like stepping in every time, because then you sort of train that, you create the beast, if you end up doing that all the time. But I've always had a close eye on my support tickets, not like doing it for people, but I used to be able to run my own reports. And if you can't run your own reports, I would be asking, the support team to produce, summaries, or even share a detailed report of everything that came in every week. So you can just scan it, and if anything pops up, make a call, not to solve it, but to follow up, particularly if you're trying to build relationships with people that you can't normally get access to. It's a easy gateway to a conversation that they will probably call you back on versus, hi, I'm Warwick, we've never met, can we catch up? Or, hi, I'm Warwick, we've never met, I'm just following up on that issue you had. I'm not from support, but I am your account manager. I want to make sure everything's fine. Different angle,
Yeah, we have, and this is not meaning to be turned into a commercial for Membrain, but we have this flagging system that I thought has been massively helpful for us. We do tickets, and we have account growth, but it's we can set rules in terms, and each person can set rules in terms of things like, okay, have they added a new user? Have they have a set number of tickets? They have, whatever those rules are. And then we could flag red, green, blue, yellow. That just pops up. So to check and understand. And
that's ideal.
And it's been, as we've worked it out, it's been incredibly helpful within the system. So, hey, we only have a couple minutes left. What other changes or evolution do you see coming to the key account manager role?
That I think, there's this idea that buyers don't want to talk to sellers. They want to do everything on their own. I think that is actually shifting a little bit, because now the complexity is incredible. There, even if you try to do things on your own, there's tools like, let's say you try to do research in ChatGPT, for example. It's a bottomless pit. Like, it's very hard to help unless you know what you're talking about. You're then bringing the expertise lens to the conversation. But if I'm trying to buy a solution, I'm almost inundated with information. It's worse than ever. And I think the KAM role is now actually going to be elevated, because now our role will be helping to bring back that level of expertise into the conversation. And in fact, Gartner, I'm just reading some stats I captured. They predict that by 2030, 75% of buyers are going to prefer human interaction, whereas the shift was the other way around. With this added complexity, the rep-free trend is going to reverse. I think that's really a big implication. So now you're going to be a lot more strategist, consultant, orchestrator, all that stuff's going to come to the front. Retention is the new acquisition, like I said before. I think AI as a co-pilot is where the work has to be done. If not used well or correctly. For example, this is an example, right? Very quickly, I actually did some training with somebody. One of their team replied to a client. No, one of their team said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I've had issues with my health. I was in hospital. I'm sorry this was late. Here's the outline of all the stuff I promised you. What do you think we should do?" The reply came back, "Hi, do this, do this, do this, do this, blah, 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 blah. Thank you very much." Clearly AI. Didn't even mention, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear you weren't well. Listen, you could have just called me and we would have done something. Hope you're feeling better." None of that. Just short, sharp response. I've seen somebody else lost a whole account because of some email they sent that ChatGPT said was fine, but it actually wasn't. So that's where the danger is, right? You're not using your brain. You're just copy pasting. So that's what I would like to see a lot more of in the future. Being more proactive, not being reactive, using the tools in the right way, having the tools in the first place, getting properly trained on ethical standards, ethical use, best practices for prompting, how to remove bias from the conversation, all that sort of stuff, really essential as we move into the sort of towards 2030 and kind of this growth of AI.
Well, that's awesome. Great feedback. Wonderful perspective. Thank you so much. How do people find you? If they
can find me at Warwick Brown everywhere. So Instagram or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's best. That's where I am. Or just go to thekamclub.com. You'll find more about me there too.
Well, and for all American English speaking, it's Warwick.
Yes.
W.
Warwick.
Warwick. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. KAM Club, LinkedIn. And I love your stuff. Thank you so much for coming on, and you are making a big impact on the world of
anytime. It's great to be here.
Keep after it, man. Keep after it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on, for listening. Please do all the liking, the sharing, the subscribing, the commenting. Even helps. Everything for the algorithm. Let's elevate the sales profession together. And as always, keep shining bright. Have an absolutely amazing